Vextal stood on the bridge of the warship and watched the blue planet grow larger on the viewing screen. Earth, the humans called it. A primitive world. A simple conquest. He had done this 43 times before across the galaxy. This would be no different. "Commander, we are entering orbit," his navigator said. The young officer's scales gleamed with excitement. This was his first planetary conquest. Vextal nodded. He was a veteran of the Zarketh Empire, a soldier for 30 cycles. His dark armor bore the marks of many battles. His 3 eyes had seen civilizations fall. Some fought well. Most surrendered quickly when they saw the fleet. The scanning officer turned from her station. "Initial data confirms previous reports, Commander. The humans are divided into multiple nations. No unified government. Their technology is primitive. Chemical rockets. Nuclear weapons at best. No energy shields. No plasma weapons." "Excellent," Vextal said. "High Commander Rathnor, what are your orders?" The High Commander's face appeared on the screen. His scales were darker, marked with age and countless victories. "Standard protocol, Commander Vextal. Issue the surrender demand. Give them 1 rotation of their planet to comply. If they refuse, begin orbital bombardment of military targets. Break their will quickly." "Understood, High Commander." Vextal had the communications officer broadcast the message in all major human languages. The Zarketh translators were good. The message was simple and clear. Surrender now. Join the Empire as a servant race. Resist and face destruction. It was the same message sent to every world. He expected the usual response. Fear, panic, perhaps some brave words before they accepted reality. Instead, the response confused him. "Go to hell," said a human voice over the communication channel. Vextal did not know this phrase. The translator struggled with it. Something about an afterlife location of punishment. A dismissal. A rejection. "They refuse him," the communications officer said, unnecessary as that was obvious. More messages came from Earth. Hundreds of them. Different languages. Different nations. But the meaning was the same. "No, never. Come and try. We will fight, fools," Vextal muttered. But something bothered him. In his experience, divided worlds usually had some nations willing to surrender to save themselves. Here, even the fractured humans seemed united in defiance. "Commander, we detect multiple launches from the surface. Chemical rockets. Primitive spacecraft heading toward us." Vextal almost laughed. "They attack?" "With those?" "Yes, Commander. Approximately 50 craft. Small single or dual pilot configurations. They appear to be armed with explosive warheads and kinetic weapons. Destroy them." The fleet's defensive weapons activated. Precision laser arrays tracked the approaching human craft. It should have been simple. The humans were slower. Their ships were fragile. They had no shields, but they did not fly like any enemy Vextal had faced before. The human ships scattered and dodged in patterns that seemed random, but were somehow effective. They were small and quick. The laser arrays destroyed 30 of them in the first minute. The remaining 20 pushed forward. "They continue to advance despite losses," his tactical officer reported. "This is unusual behavior." One human ship got close enough for Vextal to see it clearly on the screen. He could see the pilot inside through a small window. The human wore a white suit and helmet. For just a moment, their eyes met across the void of space. The human ship exploded against the warship's shields. The shields held easily. No damage, but the human had aimed directly for the bridge. "A suicide attack. Did that pilot mean to die?" Vextal asked. "It appears so, Commander. Several other craft are making similar approaches." More human ships rammed the fleet's vessels. Their explosions were small. The shields absorbed them all. But it was disturbing. Primitives usually retreated when they understood they could not win. These humans kept coming. New launches detected. Hundreds more craft coming from the surface. "Begin bombardment of their launch facilities," Vextal ordered. This was taking too long. The humans needed to learn fear. The fleet's main weapons fired down on Earth. Beams of concentrated energy struck military bases across the planet. Explosions bloomed on the surface. Cities burned. Surely now the humans would see reason. Instead, more ships launched, not just from military bases, but from civilian areas. The humans were throwing everything they had into space. One pilot's communication channel was intercepted. Vextal heard a human voice, young and male. "This is Captain Jake Morrison. If I'm going down, I'm taking one of you with me. For Earth, for humanity, Morrison's ship had been hit. It was trailing fire and atmosphere. The pilot should have ejected, should have tried to save himself. Instead, he accelerated toward the nearest Zarketh cruiser. "Intercept that craft," Vexthal ordered. The defensive systems fired. They hit Morrison's ship multiple times, but the ship's momentum carried it forward. It struck the cruiser's engine section and exploded. The cruiser's shields flickered and failed. Secondary explosions rippled through the vessel. "The cruiser Vengeful Strike is disabled, Commander." Multiple casualties reported. Vexthal stared at the screen. A primitive chemical rocket had disabled a Zarketh warship, not through superior technology, through sheer determination and willingness to die. "Pull the fleet back to high orbit," he ordered. "Launch ground forces. We take the planet the traditional way." The High Commander's face appeared again. "Problem, Commander?" "No, High Commander. The humans are more resistant than expected, but nothing we cannot handle. I recommend ground assault to minimize our fleet's exposure to suicide attacks." "Agreed. Begin landing operations." The troop transports descended through Earth's atmosphere. Vexthal went with the first wave. He commanded a force of 5,000 soldiers, all veterans. They landed outside a major human city that intelligence identified as New York. The humans were waiting. Their soldiers wore primitive armor and carried projectile weapons. Chemical explosives that fired metal slugs. Ancient technology. Vexthal soldiers had energy shields and plasma rifles. This should have been a massacre in the Empire's favor, but the humans knew their ground. They knew their city, and they did not fight like soldiers. They fought like cornered animals. A human officer led the defense. Vexthal later learned her name was Lieutenant Kate Sullivan. She was young for a commander, but her soldiers followed her orders without hesitation. They used the buildings as cover. They attacked from unexpected angles. They set traps. One of Vexthal's squads advanced down a street. A building collapsed on them. The humans had demolished it deliberately. The squad was buried. When rescue teams arrived, they found human explosives hidden among the rubble. More casualties. "These humans are savage," Squad Leader Tuckmore reported. His voice shook slightly. "They destroy their own structures. They sacrifice their own soldiers to kill a few of ours. Commander, they do not value life as we understand it." Vexthal watched the battle from a tactical position. The humans were losing? Of course they were. They were outnumbered and outgunned. But they made the Empire pay for every street, every building, every meter of ground. He saw human soldiers charge Zarketh positions with no chance of victory. He saw them fight on with wounds that should have incapacitated them. He saw them use their own bodies as shields for their comrades. Lieutenant Sullivan's unit held a bridge for 6 hours against overwhelming force. When they finally fell back, they destroyed the bridge behind them. Vexthal found 3 human soldiers who had stayed behind to set the explosives. They died in the blast that dropped the bridge. "Why?" Vexthal asked aloud. "Why not just retreat? Why die for a bridge?" Tuckmore did not have an answer. That night, after the first day of ground combat, Vexthal reviewed the casualties. The Empire had taken the city, but the cost had been higher than any first-day assault in his memory. Nearly 300 soldiers dead, twice that many wounded, and the humans showed no signs of surrendering. Their broadcasts spoke of resistance, of never giving up, of dying free rather than living as slaves. Vexthal prepared his report for the High Commander. He chose his words carefully. The conquest was proceeding, he wrote, but the humans were proving more difficult than anticipated. They employed unconventional tactics. They seemed willing to accept any casualty rate. They did not retreat when conventional wisdom said they should. He did not write what he was truly thinking. He did not write that for the first time in his career he felt something like doubt. The humans were primitive. They were weak individually. Their technology was centuries behind the Empire, but they fought like every battle was their last. They fought with a desperation and ferocity that disturbed him. They looked at the vastly superior Zarketh forces and did not see inevitable defeat. They saw enemies to be killed before dying themselves. Vexthal had conquered 43 worlds. He had never seen anything like humanity. And something deep in his warrior's instincts whispered a warning. Something was wrong about this conquest. These prey animals that refused to run. These primitive creatures that attacked warships with chemical rockets and rammed them without hesitation. He remembered the eyes of Captain Jake Morrison in that moment before the human's ship exploded. There had been no fear in those eyes. Only determination, only rage, only the absolute certainty that he would hurt the enemy even as he died. 3 weeks had passed since the invasion began. Vestal sat in his command post and reviewed reports that made no sense. The numbers contradicted everything he knew about warfare. The Zarketh Empire controlled 40% of Earth's surface. By all military doctrine, the humans should have surrendered by now. Instead, resistance had intensified. Every day brought new attacks. Every night, human forces struck back at occupation troops. Commander, another supply convoy was destroyed, Takmor reported. His scales had lost their shine. The young officer looked tired. They all did. The humans used improvised explosive devices. Then they ambushed the rescue force. How many dead? 18 soldiers. The humans also took weapons and supplies before disappearing. Vestal marked the location on his map. The 17th convoy lost this week. The humans were learning. They studied Zarketh patterns and adapted. Their attacks grew more sophisticated daily. A message came from Fleet Command. Commander Ben Carter, a human naval officer, had led a surprise attack on a supply depot in orbit. Using captured Zarketh shuttles, the humans had approached close enough to launch missiles. The depot was destroyed. How did they learn to operate our shuttles? Vestal asked. The intelligence officer brought up footage. It showed humans examining captured technology, taking it apart, figuring out how it worked. They could not build Zarketh weapons yet, but they were learning to use them. They reverse engineer our equipment in days, the intelligence officer said. Commander, these humans are dangerously adaptable. They learn faster than any species on record. A new report arrived from High Commander Rathnor. Vestal read it with growing concern. The Empire was sending reinforcements, not because Earth was conquered, but because conquest was taking too long. The High Commander was angry. He demanded faster results. Vestal wanted to write back, "You do not understand what we face here." But he could not. Such words would be seen as weakness or cowardice, so he simply acknowledged the order and promised to accelerate operations. That afternoon, his forces attacked a human stronghold in the ruins of what had once been called Washington. Intelligence said important human leaders were there. Capturing them might break the resistance. The assault began at dawn. Vestal's soldiers advanced in formation, supported by gunships and armored vehicles. The humans had dug in deep. Their defensive positions were clever, using rubble and destroyed buildings to create kill zones. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan commanded the defense. Vestal had learned her name from intercepted communications. She had survived the New York battle and had been promoted. The humans promoted based on survival and effectiveness. In 3 weeks, Sullivan had gone from commanding 30 soldiers to commanding 300. The battle was fierce. Human projectile weapons could not penetrate Zarketh shields easily, but the humans had learned to concentrate fire. Dozens of rifles targeting one soldier could overload personal shields, and when shields fell, the metal slugs tore through armor. Vestal watched from his command vehicle as his forces pushed forward. They were winning as always, but the cost kept rising. A squad of his soldiers entered a building. The entire structure exploded. The humans had rigged it with explosives and waited for the Zarketh to enter before detonating. All 12 soldiers died instantly. They sacrificed their own buildings, their own infrastructure, Takmor said. His voice held disbelief. What kind of enemy destroys everything rather than let it be captured? The desperate kind, Vestal replied quietly. The battle lasted 8 hours. In the end, the Zarketh forces took the position. But the human leaders had already evacuated. Sullivan had held the line long enough for them to escape, then had led a fighting retreat through tunnels beneath the city. Of Sullivan's 300 soldiers, only 40 survived. But they had killed almost 200 Zarketh troops and delayed the advance by an entire day. Vestal walked through the captured position afterward. The human dead lay where they fell. His soldiers were collecting weapons and searching for intelligence. One of his officers called him over to a grim discovery. "Commander, you need to see this." Several human bodies had been booby-trapped, explosives hidden beneath them. 2 Zarketh soldiers had died trying to move the bodies for burial. The humans had weaponized their own dead. Vestal felt something he had not felt in many years. Not fear exactly, but a deep instinctive revulsion. This violated the codes of warfare that most civilized species followed. The dead were supposed to be sacred. What kind of species does this? The officer asked. Vexthal had no answer. That night he spoke with squad leader Korval, his oldest friend in the military. They had served together for 20 cycles. Korval commanded a different sector but had come to coordinate strategy. I do not like this world, Korval said bluntly. These humans are wrong, Vexthal. I have fought Grecan warriors who stood 3 times our height. I have faced Centauri hive minds that thought as one, but these humans terrify me more. Why? Because they do not know when to stop. A Grecan warrior knows when he is beaten and accepts death with honor. A Centauri hive withdraws to preserve the species. But humans? They just keep fighting. Every setback makes them angrier. Every loss makes them more desperate. There is no limit to what they will do. Vexthal understood. He had seen it himself. Human soldiers fighting with limbs blown off. Human civilians attacking Zarketh troops with primitive weapons. Children throwing rocks at armored vehicles. Intelligence found something disturbing, Korval continued. He activated a datapad. Human scientists are studying our biology. They have samples from our dead. Commander, they are trying to create diseases that specifically target us. Biological warfare? Yes, the reports say they have multiple teams working on it. Different approaches. They are trying everything. Vexthal felt a chill run through him. Biological weapons were considered taboo by most advanced species. The risk of creating something that could spread beyond control was too high. But the humans apparently did not care about such risks. They will destroy their own planet rather than surrender it, Vexthal said softly. That is what we face, a species willing to burn everything down. The next day brought worse news. A human scientist named Dr. Lisa Hayes had led a team that successfully modified a Zarketh plasma rifle. They had made it more powerful and taught other humans how to replicate the modifications. Now the Resistance was fielding weapons that could punch through Zarketh shields more easily. Impossible, the weapons officer said when he saw the report. Those modifications should cause the weapon to overload and explode. The humans cannot possibly make that work, but they had, because humans did not care about impossible. They tried things that should not work and sometimes succeeded through sheer determination. More reports came in. Humans had hijacked a Zarketh communication satellite and were using it to coordinate resistance across the globe. A human mechanic named Dan Miller had figured out how to hotwire Zarketh vehicles. Resistance forces were now stealing transport craft. They are like parasites, Takmor said bitterly. They take everything we bring and turn it against us. That week, disaster struck. Korval's base was attacked by human forces using a new weapon. Intelligence had warned of biological warfare, but the speed of development shocked everyone. Dr. Claire Martinez had led a team that created a virus targeting Zarketh respiratory systems. The attack was surgical. A small team of human fighters infiltrated the base and released the virus in the ventilation system. Within hours, soldiers began falling ill. Within 2 days, the entire base was compromised. Vexthal rushed to the base with medical support. He found Korval in the medical bay, struggling to breathe. His scales had turned dark and brittle. Blood leaked from his eyes. Vexthal, Korval wheezed. Get our people out. This virus spreads too quickly. We will cure you. Our medical science will take weeks to develop a counteragent. I do not have weeks. Korval gripped his friend's arm. Listen to me. We made a mistake coming here. These humans are not a primitive species. They are something else. Something dangerous. Rest, save your strength. No, you must hear this. Korval coughed, spraying blood. I studied their history while posted here. Do you know what they are? They are apex predators, Vexthal. But not just predators. They are prey too. Their evolution shaped them to be both hunter and hunted. It made them paranoid, aggressive, and impossibly resilient. I do not understand. Earth is a death world. More species can kill humans than on any conquered planet in the Empire, so humans learn to kill everything. They learn to outlast everything. They learned that surrender means death, so they never surrender. It is in their nature. Korval died 6 hours later. The virus killed 300 more soldiers before the medical teams contained it. The entire base had to be evacuated and sterilized. Vexthal attended the funeral rites. He watched Korval's body burned according to tradition, and he thought about his friend's final words. A death world, a species shaped by constant danger, predator and prey in one. That night he reviewed Earth's history files more carefully. The database showed humans had evolved alongside creatures that could easily kill them. Large predators, venomous creatures, parasites and diseases. Yet humans had survived and thrived. They had learned to hunt animals. 6 months into the occupation, Vexthal barely recognized the soldier he had been. The confident commander who had expected an easy conquest was gone. In his place was someone who looked over his shoulder constantly, who jumped at unexpected sounds, who saw death in every shadow. The numbers told a grim story. The Zarketh Empire now controlled 60% of Earth's surface. But that control was an illusion. They held the ground beneath their boots and nothing more. Resistance forces operated everywhere. Supply lines were constant targets. No base was truly safe. The casualty reports grew worse each week. The Empire had lost more soldiers on Earth than in the previous 10 conquests combined. And the humans showed no signs of weakening. If anything, they fought harder as more of their world fell. Vexthal's command post was now underground, hidden in a bunker system. The humans had started using orbital debris as kinetic weapons, dropping pieces of destroyed satellites onto Zarketh positions. Staying above ground was too dangerous. "Commander, we have a situation," Takmor reported. The young officer looked decades older now. His scales were scarred from multiple injuries. "A human resistance leader named Ryan Cooper has taken hostages. 50 of our supply personnel. He is demanding we evacuate a civilian population center we occupy." "Where?" "The city humans call Chicago. We took it 3 months ago." Vexthal knew the city. It was strategically important, a transportation hub. Giving it up was not possible. But 50 hostages was a significant loss. "What do we know about this Ryan Cooper?" "Former human construction worker. No military training before the invasion. Now he commands approximately 2,000 resistance fighters. He has successfully raided multiple bases. Intelligence rates him as extremely dangerous. A construction worker." The humans did not distinguish between civilian and military like the Empire did. Everyone was a potential soldier. That was another horror Vexthal had learned. Human children were being taught to fight. Elderly humans conducted attacks. There was no non-combatant population. Everyone was part of the war effort. "Tell Cooper we do not negotiate with terrorists." "Commander," he said, "if we refuse, he will execute the hostages 1 per hour until we comply." Vexthal felt trapped. If he refused, 50 soldiers died and morale would plummet. If he agreed, it showed weakness and encouraged more hostage situations. Either choice was bad. Send a tactical team to rescue the hostages. The rescue attempt failed. Cooper had anticipated it. The tactical team walked into a trap. 20 soldiers died in the ambush. Cooper executed 5 hostages in response and repeated his demand. Vexthal had no good options left. He evacuated Chicago. The remaining hostages were released. The humans had won through pure ruthlessness. High Commander Rathnor was furious. A formal reprimand was placed in Vexthal's record. But the High Commander had not been on Earth. He had not faced an enemy that thought like the humans did. He did not understand that conventional military doctrine meant nothing here. Dr. Lisa Hayes continued her work adapting Zarketh technology. Intelligence reported she had taught thousands of humans to modify captured weapons. The resistance was becoming better armed with each passing week. They used Zarketh equipment better than the Empire had anticipated was possible, but it was Dr. Claire Martinez who caused the most damage. Her biological weapons became more sophisticated. New viruses appeared regularly. The medical teams could barely keep up developing counter-agents. Every base now had strict quarantine procedures. Soldiers lived in fear of invisible death. Martinez's latest creation was especially cruel. A virus that incubated for weeks before symptoms appeared. Infected soldiers unknowingly spread it to others. By the time anyone knew they were sick, dozens more were infected. 3 bases had to be completely evacuated and destroyed to contain outbreaks. "These humans have no honor," an officer complained at a strategy meeting. "They fight with poison and disease. They hide among civilians. They use children as weapons. This is not warfare. It is barbarism." Vexthal said nothing. He had stopped judging the humans by Zarketh standards. Honor meant nothing when your species faced extinction. The humans fought with every tool available because losing meant death or slavery. They had no reason to follow rules created by species who had never faced what they faced. Reports came in from other occupation zones. The stories were all similar. Humans refusing to quit. Humans adapting Zarketh technology. Humans using tactics that no civilized species would employ. One report disturbed Vexthal deeply. A human grandmother, 70 years old, had walked into a Zarketh command post wearing a vest packed with explosives. She had smiled at the guards and said, "This is for my grandchildren." Then she detonated herself, killing 30 soldiers. The humans were willing to sacrifice their elders, their children, themselves. There was no limit to what they would do. Takmor brought another troubling report. "Commander, we captured several resistance fighters yesterday. During interrogation, they said something strange. They said we cannot win because they will never stop. Even if we kill 99% of humanity, the remaining 1% will keep fighting. They said they would rather go extinct fighting than survive as slaves. Do you believe them?" "Yes, Commander. I have seen enough to believe anything about humans." Vexthal believed it too. The humans had a saying that intelligence had translated, "Give me liberty or give me death." They meant it literally. Freedom or extinction. Those were the only options they would accept. The war entered a new phase when humans successfully launched a counterattack into space. Commander Ben Carter, the naval officer who had destroyed the supply depot, had assembled a fleet using captured and modified Zarketh ships. They struck at the orbital station supporting the ground invasion. The attack was devastating. Carter's forces showed the same suicidal aggression that characterized all human combat. They rammed ships when weapons ran out. They targeted reactor cores. They used tactics no sane commander would employ. 3 orbital stations were destroyed. The Zarketh fleet was forced to pull back to higher orbit. Suddenly, the invasion forces on the ground had less support. Supply lines became even more vulnerable. Vexthal watched the battle from his bunker through long-range sensors. He saw human pilots die by the hundreds, throwing themselves at vastly superior forces. But they destroyed enough Zarketh ships to matter. Every victory cost the humans enormously, but they counted it as worth the price. "They fight like they have nothing to lose," Takmor observed. "Because they do not," Vexthal replied. "We gave them a choice between slavery and death. So they chose death and decided to make it cost us everything." News arrived from the homeworld. Other Zarketh colony worlds were experiencing supply problems because so many resources were being diverted to Earth. Citizens were asking why this conquest was taking so long. Why were so many soldiers dying for one primitive planet? The High Commander issued new orders. Increase aggression. Target human civilians to break their will. Use chemical weapons if necessary. End this war quickly no matter the cost. Vexthal read the orders and felt sick. Targeting civilians would not break the humans. It would enrage them further. He had seen enough to know that. But he had to follow orders. The chemical attacks began the next day. Nerve agents deployed in cities still under human control. The casualties were enormous. Thousands of humans died in agony. Vexthal watched the footage and felt ashamed of his uniform. The human response was swift and terrible. Ryan Cooper led a raid on a Zarketh settlement, a small colony of support personnel and their families. Civilians by Empire standards. Cooper's forces killed everyone. Not quickly or cleanly, but with deliberate cruelty. A message. If you target our civilians, we will target yours. The Empire had never faced an enemy willing to massacre civilians in retaliation. It was unthinkable. But the humans had thought it and done it. Vexthal received reports of similar attacks across the planet. The humans had abandoned any pretense of civilized warfare. They matched every escalation with an equal or greater response. Chemical weapons. The humans used biological weapons. Civilian casualties. The humans retaliated against Zarketh civilians. It became a race to the bottom, each side trying to horrify the other into submission. But horror did not work on humans. They had spent their entire history horrifying each other. Nothing the Empire could do was worse than what humans had already done to themselves in their wars. A transport shuttle crashed near Vexthal's bunker. He led a team to investigate. They found human resistance fighters picking through the wreckage, taking weapons and supplies. The humans scattered when Zarketh forces arrived, but not before Vexthal got a good look at them. Children. The oldest could not have been more than 15. They moved with military precision, carried weapons as tall as they were, and showed no fear of the Zarketh soldiers. One child, a girl maybe 12 years old, stood her ground long enough to fire at Vexthal's team before retreating. Her shots went wide, but the fact that she tried disturbed him deeply. This girl should have been in school, playing with friends, living a normal childhood. Instead, she was a soldier in a war that would likely kill her. That night, Vexthal could not sleep. He kept seeing the child soldier's face. He thought about what the Empire had done to this world. Yes, 1 year after the invasion began, everything changed. Vexthal was inspecting a forward base when the alert came. Multiple contacts entering the system. Ships approaching at faster than light speeds. Zarketh reinforcements, he assumed. The Empire had promised more ships to finish the conquest. But the communications officer's face showed confusion, then fear. "Commander, those are not our ships. The signatures are wrong. They are human ships. Impossible. Humans do not have faster-than-light technology." "They do now, Commander." Vexthal rushed to the command center and stared at the display. A fleet of human ships, dozens of them, emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were crude designs, obviously rushed into production, but they were here. The humans had achieved in 1 year what had taken the Zarketh centuries. How? Someone whispered. The answer was obvious. The humans had captured enough Zarketh ships, studied them, taken them apart piece by piece, and learned. An engineer named Dan Miller had led the effort, working with Dr. Lisa Hayes and thousands of other human scientists and technicians. They had done the impossible because they were desperate, and desperate creatures do not care about impossible. The human fleet was led by Captain Sophie Park, a former test pilot who had survived the first battles in space. Intelligence reports said she was brilliant, aggressive, and absolutely committed to human victory. Park's voice came over the communication channel. "Zarketh forces, this is Captain Sophie Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. You invaded our world. You killed our people. Now we are coming for you. We will give you one chance to surrender. Leave our system now or be destroyed." The audacity of it stunned Vexthal. The humans, who a year ago were barely capable of reaching their own moon, were now demanding the surrender of a galactic empire's fleet. High Commander Rathnor's response was predictable. Attack. Destroy them all. The battle was like nothing Vexthal had ever witnessed. The human ships were inferior in every technical aspect. Their weapons were less powerful. Their shields were weaker. Their armor was thinner, but none of that mattered because the humans fought with the same suicidal aggression they had shown from the beginning. They did not try to win through superior technology. They won through numbers, through willingness to sacrifice ships, through tactics that no sane commander would use. They rammed Zarketh vessels. They targeted specific systems rather than trying for clean kills. They worked in groups, swarming larger ships. And they had an advantage the Zarketh fleet did not. They were fighting to protect their home. Every human pilot knew that defeat meant their families, their friends, their entire species might be exterminated. They fought with nothing held back. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the human fleet had lost 30 ships. But the Zarketh fleet had lost 40, including one of the command carriers. Sophie Park had led a strike force directly at the carrier and destroyed it with concentrated fire. High Commander Rathanor survived, but his fleet was crippled. The humans owned space now. The ground forces were cut off from resupply. Vexthal watched the aftermath from his bunker and realized the war had fundamentally changed. The Zarketh could no longer reinforce their positions. They could not evacuate if needed. They were trapped on a hostile world with an enemy that outnumbered them and was getting stronger every day. The human counteroffensive on the ground began immediately. General Alex Stone, who had unified the scattered resistance forces into a proper military, launched coordinated attacks across the planet. These were not guerrilla raids anymore. These were full-scale assaults with armor, artillery, and air support. The humans had spent the year learning everything they could from captured Zarketh equipment. Now they had built factories to produce their own versions. Human-made plasma rifles, human-made energy shields, human-made armored vehicles, all based on Zarketh designs but adapted to human manufacturing capabilities. Vexthal's sector came under attack 3 days after the space battle. General Stone himself led the assault. The human forces moved with professional precision. They had learned from a year of warfare. They knew Zarketh tactics, weaknesses, and standard responses. The attack began with artillery bombardment. Human-made plasma cannons hammered the base's shields. Then came infantry supported by armored units. And finally, airstrikes from human aircraft that looked like crude copies of Zarketh gunships but functioned well enough. Vexthal led the defense personally. His soldiers fought well. They were veterans now, hardened by a year of constant combat, but they were tired, demoralized, and cut off from reinforcement. The humans had numbers and momentum. Kate Sullivan was there. The lieutenant who had defended New York was now Major Sullivan, commanding a battalion. Vextal saw her through his command scope, directing her troops with confident hand signals. She had survived a year of war and learned to fight as well as any Zarketh officer. The battle lasted all day. When night fell, Vextal ordered a retreat. His base was lost. They had to fall back to a secondary position or be surrounded and destroyed. It was the first time in his career that he had ordered a retreat. The withdrawal was a nightmare. Human forces harried them constantly. Snipers took shots from ruined buildings. Ambushes hit the column from every direction. Only half of Vextal's force reached the secondary position. Similar stories came from across the planet. Zarketh forces everywhere were in retreat. The humans were not just defending anymore. They were attacking, reclaiming their world, pushing the invaders back. Commander Ben Carter's fleet did not stop at orbital superiority. His ships began hunting down Zarketh vessels throughout the system. Every supply ship, every transport, every isolated patrol was targeted. The human fleet was smaller and less advanced, but it had the advantage of interior lines and desperate courage. 3 Zarketh resupply convoys were destroyed in 1 week. The ground forces began rationing supplies. Medical supplies ran short. Ammunition was conserved. The situation became desperate. Tuckmore came to Vextal one evening. The young officer looked exhausted. "Commander, the soldiers are asking questions. They want to know when reinforcements will arrive. They want to know if the Empire is sending help. What do I tell them? The truth?" Vextal considered lying, but these soldiers had fought beside him for a year. They deserved honesty. "Tell them we are on our own. The fleet cannot break through human space defenses. No reinforcements are coming. We must hold what we have and hope for negotiations." Tuckmore nodded slowly. "Some of the soldiers are talking about surrender. That is treason, I know. But they are scared, Commander. They did not sign up to fight deathworld predators with no support and no hope of victory." Vextal could not blame them. He felt the same fear. He had watched the mighty Zarketh Empire beaten back by a species that should have been helpless. It broke something in him, some fundamental assumption about how the universe worked. That night, human forces attacked his position. Not a major assault, just a raid. But the coordination was perfect. They hit 3 targets simultaneously, destroyed supplies, killed a dozen soldiers, and disappeared before Zarketh forces could respond effectively. Vextal realized with growing horror that the humans were hunting his forces the way predators hunt wounded prey. They struck at weak points. They exploited mistakes. They gave no mercy and expected none in return. A communication came from an unexpected source. General Alex Stone wanted to talk. Not negotiate surrender, but talk. Vextal agreed to the meeting using long-range video communication. Stone's face appeared on the screen. He was an older human, maybe 60 years by their counting. His face showed lines of stress and fatigue, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. "Commander Vextal," Stone said, "I thought you should know what is coming. We have located your other bases. We have counted your forces. We know you are cut off and running out of supplies. We are going to push you into the sea and reclaim our world. Why tell me this? Professional courtesy. You are a soldier. I am a soldier. We both know how this ends. I am offering you a chance to surrender with honor. Your soldiers will be treated as prisoners of war according to our conventions. No torture, no abuse. Just detention until this war is over. You assume you will win. We already have, Commander. You just have not accepted it yet. Your empire sent you here to conquer Earth, but Earth cannot be conquered. Our history should have told you that. We have spent thousands of years fighting each other, surviving ice ages, pandemics, and natural disasters. We are survivors. It is what we do. And if I refuse your offer, then we will destroy you. Every soldier, every base. We will hunt down every Zarketh on this planet and kill them, not because we want to, but because we must. Because the alternative is slavery or extinction, and we will accept neither." Stone leaned closer to the camera. "Your empire made a mistake coming here. Learn from it. Surrender while you still can." The communication ended. Vextal sat in silence considering the human's words. He wanted to dismiss them as bravado, but he had seen too much. The humans were not bluffing. They had the capability and the will to do exactly what Stone promised. Reports continued to arrive. Human forces had reclaimed major cities. The Zarketh controlled maybe 30% of the planet now down. The human detention facility was not what Vexthal expected. He had anticipated torture, abuse, maybe execution. Instead, he received medical treatment for his injuries. The guards were professional. The food was adequate. He was kept in a cell with other captured Zarketh officers and treated according to what humans called the rules of war. Major Kate Sullivan visited him 3 days after his capture. She sat across from him in an interrogation room, a data pad in front of her. "I am not going to hurt you, Commander," she said. "I just want to understand. Why did your empire come here? What did you hope to gain?" Vexthal considered not answering. But what did it matter now? Resources, territory. Your world was marked as primitive, an easy addition to the empire. We have conquered hundreds of worlds this way. But Earth was different. Yes, Earth was different. Sullivan leaned forward.
Do you know why?
Do you understand what makes us different? You never stop. No matter the cost, no matter the odds, you never surrender. I have never seen anything like it. It is because we had no choice, Sullivan said quietly. Your empire gave us slavery or death. So we chose death but decided to take you with us. If you had offered us fair terms, real partnership instead of servitude, this war might never have happened. Vexthal had thought the same thing many times. The Empire does not negotiate with primitives. It is policy. That policy cost you this war, and it might cost you more. He looked up at her sharply. What do you mean? You will find out soon enough. 2 weeks later, word came that shocked every Zarketh prisoner. The human fleet, led by Commander Ben Carter and Captain Sophie Park, had left Earth's orbit. They were pursuing the retreating Zarketh forces. The humans were not content with driving the invaders from their world. They were taking the war to the Empire. Vexthal learned details from conversations with guards and other prisoners. The human fleet had caught up with 3 Zarketh colony worlds. Not military targets, but civilian colonies with minimal defenses. Commander Luke Harrison led the attacks. The human fleet destroyed orbital defenses and bombarded military installations. They did not target civilians, but they made their message clear. Attack Earth again and there would be consequences. 3 colonies were left defenseless, their populations terrified. The Zarketh Empire panicked. No enemy had ever struck at the homeworld territories before. The Council of Elders convened emergency sessions. Some called for total war. Others advocated for immediate peace. High Commander Rathnor tried to organize another invasion fleet. But the Zarketh military was divided. Many officers had friends or family who died on Earth. They questioned whether conquering one planet was worth such losses. General Alex Stone appeared on galaxy-wide broadcasts. Vexthal watched from his cell as the human general spoke to the Empire. People of the Zarketh Empire, Stone said. His image was translated and distributed across Zarketh communication networks. We did not want this war. You brought it to us. You invaded our world and tried to enslave our species. We fought back because we had no alternative. Now your colonies lie defenseless. Your fleet is scattered. Your soldiers are captured or dead. We could continue this war. We could do to your worlds what you tried to do to ours. But we are not monsters. We are not you. We offer peace. Real peace. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. Never threaten Earth again and your colonies will be safe. But if you come back, if you try to finish what you started, we will not stop at your colonies. We will come for your homeworld. We will show you what it means to fight a species that refuses to die. The choice is yours. Peace or total war. Choose wisely. The broadcast ended. Vexthal sat in stunned silence. The humans were offering peace from a position of strength. They had won, but were not demanding territory or reparations. They simply wanted to be left alone. It was so different from how the Empire conducted war. The Zarketh conquered or destroyed. There was no middle ground. But the humans understood something the Empire did not. Total victory sometimes costs more than it is worth. The Empire's response took 3 days. During that time, Vexthal watched other Zarketh prisoners react to the news. Some were angry, calling for revenge. Others were relieved, hoping for peace. Most were simply tired and wanted to go home. Tuckmore was in the same facility. He and Vexthal spoke through the fence separating different sections. Do you think they will accept? Tuckmore asked. They have to. The alternative is unthinkable. These humans will not stop. If the Empire forces them to keep fighting, they will tear through our territory like a plague. How did we lose to primitives? They were never primitives. We just thought they were because their technology was behind ours. But technology is not everything. Will matters. Determination matters. And no species in the galaxy has more of that than humans. The Empire accepted the peace terms. Officially, it was called a Treaty of Mutual Non-Aggression. In reality, it was a surrender. The Zarketh Empire agreed never to approach Earth system again. All prisoners would be exchanged. All territorial claims were dropped. Ambassador Marie Chen arrived to negotiate the details. She was a middle-aged human woman with sharp eyes and a diplomatic manner. Vexthal was brought before her as a witness to the war's events. "Commander Vexthal," she said, "General Stone speaks highly of you. He says you are a good soldier who fought honorably within the rules you were given. I invaded your world. I killed your people. You followed orders, and when you were captured, you accepted it with dignity. That counts for something." She paused. "The general wants you to know that Major Sullivan spoke on your behalf. She said you tried to minimize civilian casualties when possible, that you argued for negotiation before the final assault. Vexthal had not known Sullivan was aware of those things. It did not matter. The war happened anyway. But it matters now. You are being released early, Commander. You are going home." 3 weeks later, Vexthal boarded a transport ship with thousands of other Zarketh prisoners. The humans had kept their word. All prisoners were being returned unharmed. It was more mercy than the Empire would have shown. As the ship left Earth's orbit, Vexthal looked down at the blue planet one last time. He saw the clouds, the oceans, the continents scarred by war. It looked peaceful from space. Beautiful. It was hard to believe that such a lovely world had birthed a species so terrifying in combat. The journey home took weeks. Vexthal spent the time thinking about everything he had witnessed. The suicide attacks, the biological weapons, the child soldiers, the absolute refusal to quit, and finally, the mercy shown in victory. Humans were contradictions, brutal and compassionate, warlike and peaceful, capable of terrible violence and surprising kindness. They were the most dangerous species he had ever encountered, but also perhaps the most complex. When he arrived at the homeworld, he found the Empire changed. The defeat had shaken the foundations of Zarketh society. There were protests calling for reform. The military was restructured. The policy of automatic conquest was being questioned. Vexthal was debriefed extensively. He told his story to dozens of officers and council members. Many did not want to believe him. A primitive species could not have defeated the Empire. There must have been some mistake, some tactical error, but the evidence was undeniable. The casualty reports, the captured territory, the human fleet that now patrolled Earth's system with faster-than-light ships built in just 1 year. High Commander Rathanor was removed from his position. He had led the Empire to its first major defeat in centuries. His replacement was younger, more cautious, less arrogant. Vexthal was offered retirement with full honors. He accepted. He had no desire to continue fighting. The war on Earth had taken something from him. His confidence, his certainty, his belief in the rightness of the Empire's expansion. He moved to a quiet settlement far from the capital. He wrote his memoirs, detailing everything he had seen on Earth. The book was published and became required reading at military academies. Officers needed to understand what happened. They needed to learn from the mistakes. Young Zarketh officers sometimes visited him asking questions about the war. He always told them the same things. "Humans are not warriors by nature," he would say. "They are survivors. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of years, so they learned to outlast everything. They learned to adapt to any environment. They learned that giving up means death. When we invaded, we did not face soldiers. We faced a species fighting for its existence. Every human became a soldier because they had no choice. They fought with desperation and creativity that we could not match. But the most important lesson is this: they showed mercy in victory. They could have destroyed our colonies. They could have pursued our fleet to the homeworld. But they chose peace instead. That is true strength. Not the ability to destroy your enemy, but the wisdom to stop when you have won. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Never underestimate a species based on technology alone. Never assume victory because you have superior weapons. And never ever attack a deathworld species fighting for survival. Because they will do things you cannot imagine, they will pay prices you cannot comprehend, and they will win by refusing to lose. Years passed. The story of Earth became legend in the Zarketh Empire. Other alien species heard about it too. A primitive world that defeated a